Yeah, me and Brian talk a lot anyways. In fact, it was sort of somewhat ironic. The first deal we both made, mine was the Kenny Rogers deal I finished off with Brian. That's how we started out in this business. So me and Brian, we've been talking for a couple weeks. So, and we talked a lot, more than I like to talk to Brian at times. But with him, it's always, he's such a pro. And we have a tremendous amount of respect for, I think, each other, and we have a lot of respect for the Yankees and the way they do business over there. So it wasn't that painful.
What was the key then to finally getting it?
Well, I don't want to spend too much time on, really details about players who may or may not have, been traded. But listen, they've got a really deep system. So we were pretty focused on each other. I mean, we felt like in Sonny we had what they wanted and needed, not just this year but going forward. And the Yankees have, and they spent a lot of time and put a lot of effort into it. They have arguably one of the deepest farm systems in the game. So we were pretty locked in on them pretty early, and most of our serious conversation, was with the Yankees.
Was there one of the three players that was specifically a kind of a target throughout from the beginning?
Oh man. How do I answer this? Again, with them, they have so many players, but there's certainly. I would certainly say that the last piece of the deal, and I don't want to necessarily be specific as to who that was. I mean, that was sort of what we were on hold about. But there, a couple of the players in the deal, we were at least able to come to some agreement that they were going to be in the deal and had to be part of the deal. So.
Were there any concerns with the fact that two of them are coming off surgeries?
What?
That two of them
they're hurt?
Oh.
I actually tricked you there. No, listen, first of all, obviously we, as the Yankees did on Sonny too, a pretty exhaustive medical review, and we feel very comfortable where they are in the rehab and when they'll be ready in both cases. And in Dustin's case, we expect him to be ready to go in spring training and be hopefully part of our Major League club next year.
How unique was that, Billy, to construct a deal with players in that situation for you, based on what you've done in the past?
As far as having them
acquiring players that can't play yet, but you see now quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. But in some sense, we sort of viewed it as an opportunity. As long as we felt good about the prognosis, we viewed it as an opportunity. Because I can certainly tell you that it would have been very hard to acquire all three of these guys had that not been the case. So at that point, we had to sort of calculate when we felt like they were necessary for us in terms of being ready and when they would be ready. So.
This is not new criticism.
Joe.
You've heard this before, and the people that the fans start to get familiar with aren't here for long. What do you say to them as you look forward to give them confidence?
Well, this is part of our process as we sit here right now. I mean, we're in last place, so we need to do something. And we need, Sonny was a great player for us, but at this point we need a lot of great players. And I think there's a talent deficit that exists right now, and the way to acquire multiple good players is to trade some of the good players you currently have. And as I said, I think we were pretty clear about the direction we were going to go in the last couple of weeks, and we need to get younger, and hopefully the next cycle is one that we maintain these players, and I think that's the goal here.
So I've heard you talk about the 3-year plan. Is this still a 3-year plan at this point?
Did I say 3? I don't know. I actually don't think I put a timetable on it. Yeah, I don't know that you can put a timetable. Sometimes it comes quicker than you like. I will say this: the acquisitions here were met for the long term, which is why, had we been in a different spot in our development, we might not have considered somebody like Kaprielian or because of the Tommy John surgery. So I think that was really us saying, listen, we know this is going to take time. Let's take the best talent available, and we're willing to wait.
Really, there was a thought that maybe you guys could deal Sonny in the off season, maybe even more teams get involved in the bidding. Was it a chance to get these prospects maybe pull the trigger right now, or just feeling that he was kind of at peak value right now? What made you decide to make this move today rather than wait?
Well, we like what we got back. I mean, so I think anytime you decide to make a trade, it's ultimately you're trying to, whatever time it is. If you like the deal at the time, then you do it. And the flip side of that argument, Joe, is that actually during the off season, other teams have more options as well. Sometimes this is also a good leverage point, the trade deadline, where you have teams that there's a sense of urgency because of the deadline where they are currently. When the winter, you're not playing a game every day, and actually sometimes during the winter, teams will have a tendency to really, really value the prospects at even a higher level, because that's really when that's when people are talking about them when you're not playing every day. So sometimes, the assumption that the market's going to be better at this time or not is not always the case. I can tell you last winter, there wasn't a tremendous amount of conversation, certainly regarding Sonny. We had one or two brief conversations with a club or two, but it wasn't there wasn't a lot. So again, prospect, when you're playing, the pressure of playing a major league game every day has a tendency to sort of at least put you in a position maybe to acquire guys during the off season that you couldn't touch, because again, prospects' value seems to really go up in the off season. And again, they have a lot of options too. You have free agency, but other teams you have to trade for. So we thought this was the right time.
How many teams did you wind up hearing from during this last month?
Well, we heard from a lot. There was quite a few that were interested, but that level of interest didn't always match what they might be willing to do. So the Yankees, in our mind, were very serious about the acquisition and really liked the player a lot, as they should, and that was reflected in the package they're willing to talk about. So there's some clubs that inquired, but I really, by virtue of what they were willing to talk about, in our minds, weren't really serious about acquiring them.
You said that you talked to Brian for a couple of weeks now. In the case of Rosales, we're guessing that there's something happened all of a sudden because they are in emergency.
I'm sorry. In
the case of the Rosales trade to the D-backs.
Yeah, that came together pretty quick. We had a roster move we have coming up here, and there was a need for Arizona, so that was based on our own move that we're going to make and the need that they have, and it came together very, very quickly. So.
Where do you see Mateo playing, and when Fowler is ready to go, where do you see him?
Certainly Dustin is center fielder. Mateo's going to go to Midland and play shortstop right now. In fact, I think David's going to see him on Thursday. He'll be there. David will be there Thursday, and Mateo will get there as soon as he can arrive.
Maybe a trade for need in terms of maybe center fielder or future possibility?
Well, we certainly have a need there. What we tried to be really careful about, and we kept reminding ourselves in this deal, was to make sure that we were trying to acquire the best package that we could. And in fact, there was a lot of sort of, I guess, media scuttlebutt that we were going to focus on a team because they had a center fielder, and we wanted to make sure that we were trying to get the best talent package. The good thing in the Yankees' case and in Dustin's case, he happens to be a center fielder that we liked the player and didn't feel like we were just pursuing him because of the position. So we kept having to remind ourselves that let's get the best talent package. In fact, in the case of some of the players we talked with the Yankees, and even when we looked at other clubs, we were willing to consider some clubs and some deals that had players that were no higher than A-ball, just based on the scouting reports and knowing that it would take a few years. And again, we really wanted to focus on the talent of the players long term. It just so happened with the Yankees, which is why they were such a good fit, is that they have very young players at a very high level, and were already somewhat accomplished. So you kind of got a little exactly what you wanted, and with a little less risk in terms of where they were playing in the Yankee system.
The Yankees are your business moving forward, but how do you see Sonny fitting into the big city? Right?
Perfectly. Yeah. Listen. Yeah. I think first it's a great opportunity for Sonny. The Yankees are a first-class operation. They've obviously got a good team. They got a young team too. Sonny fits in age-wise too. People don't associate one of the best young teams in baseball with the New York Yankees, but that's what they've become. And so I think it's a perfect fit, and I think Sonny's going to do great. And I think the Yankees are going to be very happy to have Sonny Gray on the team, and not just this year, but going forward as well.
What's the time frame for Kaprielian?
Well, he had his, a normal surgery. I mean, again, give or take, but you would suspect he would be throwing in May. I think he's due to start in August here to start actually throwing after the surgery. But I mean, if you look at the history of these things, you're probably looking at May next year.
Is he a guy that you targeted in the draft at all?
Yeah, we were going to take him actually. Yeah, he was selected with the 16th pick, and we were told we got a pretty our scouting department has a pretty good relationship with their scouting department, and Damon Oppenheimer, the scouting director, basically told us he's not getting to you, and so he was actually a guy that we would have selected, but we knew before the draft he's not getting to us. So
since you said before that you and our rebuilding move.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Rebuilding move. And then you said that about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you still have a few veterans in your team. Is to be expected that you're going to make some more moves in the next few weeks, probably?
Not necessarily. We're not going to make moves just for move's sake. You also have the impediment of the waiver wire.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get through waivers to make trades. So, we'll take it on a case-by-case basis.
Were any discussions that you tabled till later?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Were any discussions that you tabled till later that you might anticipate sort of bring back up again?
I mean, if there was, I'm not sure. I'm going to tell you guys. So,
Billy, where were they rehab? The two guys, were they going to be?
Dustin's going to come here, and Kaprielian's actually he's from Los Angeles and had his surgery by Elatrage, and but it's likely he will though go to Arizona because he's got access to a pretty easy flight. But I think we're going to send him to Arizona with our guys down there.
When you see what Houston has done, where they've created a certain style of team, do you feel like with some of the moves you've been making and players you draft like Austin Beck, that kind of athletic type player, are you seeing a kind of a concerted effort to look for ways to maybe have those kind of players, that kind of options on the field?
Well, I think we all in baseball would like to have, if you're asking me if I'd like to have Correa, Springer, and Altuve, yeah, that's what we're shooting for. But, listen, the one thing, especially in today's game, the ability to sort of quantify all parts of the game, you take a guy with great speed, I mean, it comes across in a couple different forms, and his ability to run the bases, his ability to play defense, it helps certainly. So I guess the short answer is, yeah, we'd love to all have great all-around athletes and players. Again, we're trying to, in our opinion, get the best baseball talent we can, and it just so happens it's come in the form of some of the guys you mentioned. So, I don't know if it's, again, it's just an effort to bring in talent, period.
What in particular do you like about Mateo?
Well, he's, God, this sounds really simple. He's really fast. So, we've been sitting on the Yankees the last couple of weeks, and he just kept rising up the list. He's an explosive athlete with, I mean, he's played a little bit of center over there with the Yankees, but he also has proven himself to be adept with a glove too. So he's just explosive athlete. Can really do a lot of things in the bases, and a nice guy to have in the center of the diamond.
Did you sense Sonny's value increasing over the last month or so as his performances?
It certainly helped. Yeah, I mean, I think that he's been, the thing. I think that he's shown the last recent run is that he's consistently putting back-to-back starts together. He's striking guys out. His stuff is as good as it's ever been. So, but yeah, I guess the short answer is yeah. But there's a certain point it peaks out at, but yeah, teams, I think we're very interested, particularly playoff clubs that thought they could help. But I also noticed in this trade market, teams were as much focused on next year as they were this year. And I mean, I talked to Theo quite a bit. I mean, even his explanation to me with Quintana, listen, it was about this year certainly, but it was as much about the next 2 years, couple years with Quintana. And I think that is kind of what drove the Yankees as well with Sonny. I mean, teams are looking, beyond just right now, and that's one of the reasons you use the term rentals. You didn't see a lot of activity around players on the last year of their contract. Teams really value their prospects, and if they're going to give up their prospects, they're going to make sure that they have more often than not more than half a season for them.
Speaking of which, Lowry and Alonso, free agents, not moved obviously. What are you thinking about with them, especially because they play positions that you might have some top prospects filling in eventually?
Well, in Jed's case, we have a club option on him, and I mean Jed's had a great year. I mean he's arguably been one of our most consistent players this year. So we certainly have time on deciding on that in the off season. In Alonso's case, he's having a great year for us, and listen, I think that we weren't just going to move somebody just to move somebody, and in Yonder's case, I mean, I think we got to respect the fact that wherever you are in the standings, we have 2 months of the season to play, and he's been our all-star performer and contributing part of the club, and we weren't just going to move him to movement at the time. Certainly, given where we're going, I think we had to listen and consider some things, and we did, have some things, but thought it was wiser to hold on to him at this point right now. But again, we still have 2 months in the season. We'll see what happens.
Is Yonder a guy you would consider extending, or have you thought about that, or is that
Well, I haven't thought about it in the last 2 weeks, mainly because I've been focused on this. But it's, I think it's probably a fair question. Maybe when we take a breath. I mean, ultimately, we're going to look at where we are. What's the best interest of our team long term, and figure it out then. But I don't necessarily have an answer right now for you.
Was the market for position players kind of as weak as people were making it sound like? Just in general, it sounded like
it seemed to be. Again, well, obviously Sonny was one of the he was our highest profile guy and one of the highest profile guys in the market. But it does seem like it was more focused on pitching than position players. I mean, you take a guy like Yonder. It's not that everybody doesn't respect what a great season he's had, but you're also looking at most likely a playoff team or a team in the playoffs, and one that needs that particular position, and there has to be a match sometimes. Whereas we have 11, 12 pitchers on every staff. Everybody's looking for pitching of this time of year, and there's plenty of spots to fill in there.
One more question, guys.
No, Zach, just keep going. It's just fun. Well, I guess you intimidated the heck out of him, Zach. You're good, man. You are so good.
Did you actually have to come off some guys that were untouchable by them?
The one thing you have to, lecturing you guys create the darn thing. Don't assume what you read in the media is to be correct. What a crazy concept, huh? So listen, when you're trying to make a deal, or you're both you can be efficient, inefficient. You certainly check a lot of boxes, but ultimately, as it applies to the Yankees, they had a lot of good players, and it was pretty clear to us some guys that just were not going to be available, and you don't spend a lot of time on them, and you can sit there and keep asking and end up making no deal at all. So. Again, the advantage the Yankees had from the outset is that even if they took a couple players off for a reason or not, they still had a lot of other guys with which to choose from. So, I mean, sometimes I see media reports, A's are asking for this, and it was absolutely false, or A's not coming off this, or A's, and they, probably from their side hear the same thing, and a lot of it's just total fiction, so. Listen, it's pretty easy when you're dealing with a player of Sonny's talent. I mean, you can find a lot of reasons not to make a deal. And okay, John, I asked for Judge. They wouldn't give him to me. All right, is that what you're asking now? But me and Brian again have a very good relationship. We're candid with each other, so again, we're able to cut through some of the fat that ends up being a waste of time in many cases.